Joseph Michael Kiernan stands charged on indictment with theft, contrary to Section 1 of the Theft Act 1968. Particulars of the offence being...
The case you're about to see is fictional. The procedure, however, is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public.
He has pleaded not guilty, and it is your charge, having heard the evidence, to say whether he be guilty or not.
Mr. Perry?
Thank you, Your Honour.
His Honour Judge Copeland presides in the case of the Queen against Kiernan.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the accused, Joseph Michael Kiernan, stands indicted of theft, contrary to Section 1 of the Theft Act 1968. The particulars being that on Friday the 10th of September 1982, he stole a copper cylinder from the garden shed of Mr. Gordon Sibley, who resides in Maytree Avenue, Colchester. In the course of the evidence, you will hear that the defendant, who describes himself as a travelling scrap dealer, knew that the copper cylinder was kept in Mr. Sibley's garden shed, that he was seen in Mr. Sibley's garden on the night that the cylinder disappeared from the shed, and that on the following morning the cylinder was discovered by the police under the defendant's lorry at the encampment in which he was residing. You will also hear that the defendant's fingerprints were found on the copper cylinder and on the door of the shed in Mr. Sibley's garden. It is for the prosecution to prove to you that, taken together, the weight of this evidence is overwhelming and that the defendant is guilty as charged. With Your Honour's permission, I shall call my first witness, Mrs. Susan Archer, please.
Look at her interfering all day. Dressed up for a garden party, not for a court case. Just look at her.
Take the book in your right hand and read aloud the words on the card.
I swear by Almighty God...
Could the witness speak up a little, please?
I'm sorry.
Again, please.
I swear by Almighty God the evidence I give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
You are Susan Archer.
Yes.
And what is your address, Mrs. Archer?
17 Maytree Avenue, Fulchester.
And you live next door to Mr. Gordon Sibley, is that correct?
Yes. Mr. Sibley lives at number 15. Our houses are semi-detached.
I see, Mrs. Archer. Now, were you at home in the early hours of Friday the 10th of September, 1982?
Yes, I was.
I wonder if you'd be good enough to tell the jury exactly what you heard and saw at that time.
Well, I was lying in bed upstairs. I wasn't asleep. The weather was very warm for September, as warm as it has been lately, and I don't usually sleep very well in any case. Suddenly, I heard a dog barking. It sounded so close, it quite startled me. And then I heard a man's voice.
Can you say approximately what time it was when you heard these sounds?
Yes, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I just looked at my bedside clock a few moments before.
And what happened then, Mrs. Archer?
I lay very still for a few seconds, and then I screwed up my courage and went to the window.
And what did you see?
I saw that man and a dog in Mr. Sibley's back garden.
When you say that man, you mean the accused?
Yes.
Mr. Bears?
If it please Your Honour, the identity of the person Mrs. Archer saw is not in dispute. The defendant does not deny that he was in Mr. Sibley's garden at the time in question.
Thank you, Mr. Bears. Continue, Mr. Perry.
Your Honour. You have a clear view of Mr. Sibley's back garden from your bedroom window, do you, Mrs. Archer?
Yes, I do.
And had you seen the accused in that garden before the date of the alleged crime?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell the court when, please?
Yes, on the Wednesday, just 2 days before the cylinder disappeared, I caught him red-handed poking about in Mr. Sibley's garden shed.
Mr. Bears? Do you wish to object to this line of questioning? What happened 2 days before would appear to have very little to do with the alleged offence.
I'm most grateful, Your Honour, but it will in fact be the defence's contention that what did or did not happen 2 days before is of great relevance to the case. I'm therefore content to let my learned friend proceed.
Very well.
What did you do when you saw the accused poking about in the shed, Mrs. Archer?
I called down to him. I was at the bedroom window and I called down to ask what he was doing.
And what did the accused do?
He jumped. I obviously startled him. Then he turned and looked up and said, "I'm looking for scrap. Have you got any old scrap, missus?"
I see. Now, on the night or rather early morning, of the alleged crime. When you looked out of your bedroom window, Mrs. Archer, could you see what was happening?
Yes, the dog was in the long grass at the bottom of the garden, and he was by the hedge at the bottom of the garden calling the dog.
And at that time, Mrs. Archer, was the door of the garden shed open or closed?
It was standing open.
I see. And then what happened?
They both disappeared through the hedge.
The accused and the dog?
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Archer. Oh, one moment. I believe my learned friend may have a few questions for you.
Oh, dear.
If you would feel more comfortable sitting down, Mrs. Archer, you'll find a seat in the witness box.
Oh, thank you.
I'm obliged to Your Honour.
Your Honour. Mrs. Archer, on the night or early morning of the alleged crime, what did you do after you'd seen the defendant and his dog in Mr. Sibley's garden?
After they eventually disappeared through the hedge and out of the garden, I went back to bed.
You went back to bed?
Yes.
You didn't ring the police or call Mr. Sibley to tell him what you'd seen?
Not at the time, no.
Why was that?
I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't like to disturb people at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Was that possibly because you weren't sure exactly what you had seen?
I saw well enough. It was a clear night.
Indeed. You saw the defendant with his dog at the bottom of the garden.
That's right.
Is the shed at the bottom of the garden?
No, at the top.
See, so did you see the defendant near the shed?
No,
But was he carrying anything when you saw him?
not when I saw him, no.
Mrs. Archer, what is beyond the hedge at the bottom of Mr. Sibley's garden?
A footpath.
A public footpath?
Yes.
And do the hedge and the footpath run along the bottom of all of the gardens on that side of Maytree Avenue?
Yes.
Mrs. Archer, is it not perfectly possible that the dog came through the hedge into the long grass in Mr. Sibley's garden in pursuit of a rat or a hedgehog, and that the defendant came through the hedge in pursuit of his dog, simply to retrieve the dog, in other words?
I don't believe that. He was being furtive.
Understandable, even in perfectly innocent circumstances, surely. I mean, you yourself have stated, and I quote, that you didn't like to disturb people at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's not the same thing at all.
Isn't it? I suggest to you, Mrs. Archer, that you were inclined to draw the worst possible conclusion from what you saw.
The obvious conclusion.
Yes, but if it was so obvious at the time, why didn't you tell the police or Mr. Sibley at once?
I told you, I was upset. You don't understand. It's easy to see afterwards what one should have done when something happens, but it's not always so easy when it happens, particularly when you're on your own.
Yes,
and
I do understand that, Mrs. Archer. I understand perfectly. Would it be fair to say, then, that you felt threatened by the noises that drew your attention on the morning of the alleged crime?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Why was that exactly?
Well, for obvious reasons, I thought it was an intruder. I mean, it happens all the time nowadays, doesn't it? Burglaries, mugging, it's dreadful. One has to be constantly alert.
Yes, and being constantly alert, Mrs. Archer, you saw the defendant in Mr. Sibley's garden 2 days before the alleged crime.
I was being a good neighbour.
You're an old busybody.
Bloody is.
Yes, what time of day would that have been, approximately, Mrs. Archer?
Just before 11.
In the morning.
Yes.
And what was he doing?
I just said he was poking about in the shed.
And the shed door was open?
Yes.
Now, think very carefully, Mrs. Archer. Was the defendant touching the shed door in any way? Did he, for example, have hold of the door handle?
No.
Now, you're absolutely certain of that, are you, Mrs. Archer?
Yes, he was just standing there in the shed.
In the shed, Mrs. Archer?
In the doorway.
Oh, so he wasn't actually in the shed at all?
He was looking in.
Yes. What exactly did you say to the defendant? Can you remember?
Yes. I just said, "What do you want?"
Did you say anything else to him? Did you in fact say, "Go away, we don't want your sort around here. Go away or I'll call the police"? Mrs. Archer?
I may have said something like that. Yes, he was a trespasser.
A trespasser? Or simply an innocent scrap dealer looking for business. I suggest to you, Mrs. Archer, that as on the night of the alleged crime, you were inclined to draw the worst possible conclusion from what you saw.
He should have gone away when there was no reply at the front door. Mr. Sibley wasn't in.
Oh, so you saw him knock at Mr. Sibley's front door before he went round to the back?
Yes.
I see. And did you later tell Mr. Sibley of this incident?
Yes, that evening when he came home.
Mrs. Archer, did the defendant knock at your front door before he went to Mr. Sibley's?
Yes, he did.
Was he in fact calling from house to house?
Yes, he was, but I wasn't answering the door to the likes of him. How he had the nerve to knock at our doors after all the trouble there's been, I can't imagine.
When you say trouble, Mrs. Archer, what exactly do you mean?
With the Tinkers.
Now, are you referring to the travellers who had occupied the Follens Marsh site at the end of Maytree Avenue?
Tinkers, gypsies, travellers, call them what you like. He was one of them, and they made our lives an absolute misery.
Mr. Sibley, could you tell us what happened at your home about 6 a.m. on the morning of Friday, the 10th of September, 1982?
Yes, I think so. I got up just before 6 in the morning and went downstairs to make myself an early morning pot of tea. Whilst I was filling the kettle, I noticed that the door to my garden shed was standing open. The kitchen window's over the sink. It looks out into the back garden.
And were you surprised to see the shed door open?
Yes, I was a bit, because I distinctly remember shutting it later the previous evening. I'd been pruning the roses, and I didn't put the secateurs away into the shed until about 8 o'clock.
Did you see the copper cylinder in the shed at that time?
Definitely, yes.
And was it still there on the Friday morning?
No, it was not. Whilst the kettle was boiling, I went out to have a look at the shed. Still in my pyjamas, actually, and it had gone. The cylinder, that is.
And what did you do then?
I phoned the police and made myself a pot of tea.
Did the police arrive quickly?
Yes, very quickly, no more than a minute. Most impressive. 2 young officers in a police car. I gave them a statement, showed them the shed, and off they went. And then about half an hour later, I got a phone call from the police station saying that they had found a copper cylinder and would I go down and identify it, which I did.
May the copper cylinder be Exhibit 1, Your Honour. And can the witness be shown the exhibit, please? Now, is that the cylinder that you were shown at the police station, Mr. Sibley?
Yes, it is.
And it is definitely yours, the same cylinder that until the night of the alleged crime was kept in your garden shed?
Definitely, yes.
Thank you. Will you return to the witness stand?
Mr. Sibley, how do you identify the exhibit? I should have thought one copper cylinder was very much like another.
Well, there's a small dab of red paint near the neck, Your Honour. I accidentally splashed it a couple of months ago. And there are 2 small dents near the bottom.
Yes, I see. Very well. Is it heavy?
Bulky rather than heavy, Your Honour.
Your Honour, if it please, Your Honour, as the portability of the exhibit may have a bearing on the case, I should be most grateful if members of the jury could be permitted to test the weight for themselves.
Yes, I see no reason why not. So long as nobody injures himself.
Obliged, Your Honour.
Mr. Perry?
I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honour.
Mr. Sibley, do you always get up as early as 6 in the morning?
Not usually, no. Quite often in the summer months, though. Best part of the day.
Yes, indeed. Are you a light sleeper, then?
Short rather than light.
You didn't hear the noises emanating from your back garden earlier in the morning in question that so disturbed your neighbour, Mrs. Archer?
Now, my wife and I have a bedroom at the front of the house. We don't hear noises at the back, only at the front.
Is there a lot of noise at the front of your house, then?
Not normally. Maytree Avenue's a nice, quiet cul-de-sac.
But in August and September 1982, was there a lot of noise then?
At times.
Yes, what was causing the noise, Mr. Sibley?
Basically, Tinker's lorries and cars roaring up and down at all hours.
That's cars and lorries from the Travellers' encampment at the end of Maytree Avenue, on the ground known as Follens Marsh.
Yes, that's right. They arrived about mid-August. Just swarmed up Maytree Avenue like an invading army. About 30 caravans, lorries, hordes of dogs, and that was end of peace and quiet.
Everyone's got to live somewhere, you know.
Silence in court.
Yes, would it be true to say, then, that you regarded the travellers as a nuisance, Mr. Sibley?
Your Honour, I cannot see that Mr. Sibley's feelings regarding the travellers are of any relevance to this case.
Your Honour, I respectfully submit that the witness's attitude toward the travellers on the Follens Marsh site is of great relevance to the case and will be shown to be so.
Very well, Mr. Bass. You may continue.
Obliged, Your Honour. Mr. Sibley, would it be true to say that you were eager to see the travellers leave Follens Marsh?
Yes, it would.
Is that why you started a residents' action group to have them removed?
Well, it didn't take much starting, believe me. Everybody in the avenue felt the same. And so would you if they'd set up camp at the end of your street. It's like a nightmare. What with their lorries roaring up and down, chewing up the road surface, their dumped cars, piles of rubbish, bonfires, and the thieving. My copper cylinder wasn't the first thing to disappear since they arrived.
Just answer the questions, please, Mr. Sibley, and refrain from making wild allegations.
Are you acquainted with the defendant, Mr. Sibley?
Well, not exactly acquainted.
But you met him before today?
Yes. He's one of the tinkers. Sorry. One of the travellers that we've just been talking about.
Can you tell us how you came to meet the defendant?
Yes. A few days after they'd settled on Follens Marsh, I visited their camp. Myself and one or two other residents to have a chat.
Chat?
Yes. We wanted to put our point of view and to see how long they intended upon staying.
And you spoke to the defendant?
Yes, he was their sort of spokesman.
Oh, so you knew where he lived, which caravan was his?
Yes.
And was the chat a success?
No, not really. It became quite evident that they had no intention of moving on. Well, not in the near future, anyway.
And as a result of this apparent impasse, your residents' action group was set up?
Yes.
And meetings were held to discuss the situation?
Yes.
What form did these meetings take, Mr. Sibley?
Informal, mostly, on the green at the end of the cul-de-sac.
And were they attended solely by local residents?
Mostly, yes. But at one we had our local MP, 2 local councillors, and this guy from the council's ethnic minorities unit. He was there to put the travellers' point of view, of course. We pay his wages, they pay nothing, he puts their point of view. No wonder our rates are so high. Crazy.
Just answer the questions, please, Mr. Sibley.
Mr. Sibley, were you for some years an officer with the Territorial Army?
Your Honour, I must object, surely. Even if my learned friend is to be indulged in inquiring about Mr. Sibley's feelings towards travellers, the witness's hobbies can hardly be of interest to this court.
Mr. Bass?
If Your Honour will bear with me, the relevance of this question will be shown.
I very much hope so.
Honour. Mr. Sibley, were you once a member of the Territorial Army?
Yes, I was.
For how long?
15 years.
Yes. And you attained the rank of captain?
That's right.
When did you cease to be a member of the Territorials?
Oh, about 3 years ago. I thought I was getting a bit old for that sort of thing, you know, getting a bit soft. A round of golf's more my style now.
Yes. Mr. Sibley, during your service with the Territorials, did you often take part in night operations, manoeuvres, special raids, that sort of thing, in the hours of darkness?
Oh, sometimes at the weekend camps, yes.
So you were also training to run and fight, carrying loads of 40 pounds or more?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Sibley, how did the cylinder get into your garden in the first place?
How?
Yes. Did you put it there?
Well, of course I did.
You carried it?
Yes.
Is there a path in your back garden, Mr. Sibley?
Path, yes.
Leading from the house toward the bottom of the garden?
Yes, that's right. It runs about 2/3 of the way down.
Does it go past your garden shed?
Yes, the shed's at the top, near the house.
And the shed is right next to the path, is it? I mean, you don't have to leave the path to open the shed door.
Well, that's right, you don't have to leave the path. If you go down it from the back door, there are rose bushes on your right and the shed is on your left.
Mr. Sibley, when you shut the shed door on the evening before the alleged crime, did you lock or bolt it?
No, it hasn't got a lock or a bolt.
Has it got a latch there?
No, it has a handle. An ordinary turning door handle. You turn the handle to open and shut the door.
I see. If you don't shut the door properly, does it sometimes swing open again of its own accord?
Well, it might do that occasionally, but I did shut it properly.
And when it does swing open, does it do so sometimes in such a way as to block the garden path, if it was open at an angle of 90 degrees, say?
Well, if it was open at 90 degrees, yes, it would block the path. It's a very narrow path.
And when the door swings open, which way does it swing? Towards the house or towards the bottom of the garden?
Well, towards the house.
So, if the shed door was standing open at an angle of 90 degrees, a person approaching from the house would have to push it shut or partly shut, to walk past the shed?
Yes?
Or even to look in the shed?
Yes?
Mr. Sibley, can you tell us who owned the land known as Follen's Marsh at the time of the travellers settled on it in August 1982?
Colchester Borough Council.
And who owns it now?
Causeway Developments.
Causeway Developments. That is a property and construction company, is it not?
That's right, house building.
And are you a director of Causeway Developments, Mr. Sibley?
I am.
And has site work now commenced with a view to building 90 private dwellings on the Follen's Marsh site?
It has.
Yes. Now, can we return to Maytree Avenue, the residence meetings which were taking place in August and September 1982? Mr. Sibley, do you recall attending such a meeting at about 6:30 on the evening of the 9th of September? This is, in effect, the evening before the alleged crime took place. This, I believe, was the meeting to which the representatives of the Fulchester Council Ethnic Minorities Unit brought news of a change of council policy toward the travellers. Do you recall that meeting, Mr. Sibley?
Yes, well, I ought to. It's the nearest thing to a riot I've ever been in the middle of.
Well, you're saying the meeting was a stormy one.
It certainly was.
Can you tell us why?
Well, under the law, the council were perfectly entitled to evict the travellers without further ado. And in the past, when these sort of people have landed up in Colchester, they've been sent packing. Now, here was this guy standing there telling us that the council weren't going to evict. For humanitarian reasons, travellers who behaved themselves were to be allowed to remain on council property until it was urgently needed for development.
So the eviction you and your fellow residents have been pressing for was not now to materialise. You were stuck with Follen's Marsh travellers, provided they behaved themselves.
Yes, that's right. The council's view was that we were exaggerating the nuisance. Needless to say, nobody on the council lives in Maytree Avenue.
Mr. Sibley, at this stormy meeting, did you utter the words, "There's more than one way to skin a rabbit"? Mr. Sibley?
Yes, I did.
What exactly did you mean by that remark?
Well, I was trying to diffuse a rather dangerous situation. Well, everybody was going bananas, saying that the council had stabbed us in the back. There was a lot of wild talk about gathering an army together and going to invade the travellers' camp and driving them off.
And you didn't agree with that?
Certainly not. Well, take the tinkers and the dogs on their own ground. No, thanks.
So what exactly did you mean when you said there's more than one way to skin a rabbit?
I have told you I was just trying to cool tempers a bit, to stop people from doing things stupid.
Oh, by suggesting that there were other means of achieving the removal of the travellers than by brute force?
Yes.
What other means, Mr. Sibley?
Well, I've no idea. It was just something to say.
I suggest to you that it was more than something to say. I suggest that you were prepared to take the law into your own hands in a very different way.
Your Honour.
Yes, Mr. Merrick. Mr. Bass, I trust you have considered the possible consequences this line of questioning may have for the defendant.
I have, Your Honour.
That you intend to continue.
With Your Honour's permission.
Very well, Mr. Bass.
I suggest to you, Mr. Sibley, that the sense of outrage you felt as a resident, compounded by your frustration at the possible delay in the realisation of your financial interest in the Follen's Marsh site, prompted you to attempt to discredit the travellers by unfair means. I suggest that the copper cylinder was not stolen from your garden shed at all, but that you attempted to enter the travellers' encampment by stealth, placed the cylinder under the defendant's lorry, and later called the police, knowing full well where the blame for the alleged crime would fall. No further questions, Your Honour.
The case of the Queen and Kiernan will be resumed tomorrow in the Crown Court. The case you're about to see is fictional, but the procedure is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public. Joseph Kiernan, a travelling scrap dealer, stands accused of stealing a copper cylinder, the property of Gordon Sibley.
No further questions, Your Honour.
In cross-examination, defence counsel has suggested that the alleged crime was fabricated. Now the prosecution re-examines Sibley.
Mr. Sibley, what do you say to my learned friend's suggestion that you knowingly fabricated the crime on which this case is brought by, I suppose the word would be, planting your copper cylinder under the defendant's lorry?
Ridiculous.
You deny it?
Absolutely.
In attempting to establish a motive for this extraordinary alleged escapade on your part, my learned friend has drawn attention to the fact that, in addition to considering the travellers on Folland's Marsh to be a nuisance, you had a vested interest, a financial interest, in seeing them vacate the site as soon as possible. Do you deny such an interest?
I had a financial interest in the site, certainly. It was common knowledge locally.
When you say it's common knowledge locally, Mr. Sibley, what exactly do you mean?
Well, Causeway Developments have been negotiating with Colchester Borough Council over the Folland's Marsh site for the past 5 years. Prior to that, it was marked down for industrial development. Funny enough, it was pressure from the local residents that got the planning use changed to private housing. They were extremely chuffed when I moved into Maytree Avenue and they found out that I was connected with the firm that was going to build the houses.
So there was nothing secret or sinister about your financial interest in the site?
Certainly not.
And was a protracted occupation of the site by the travellers likely to jeopardise or even delay Causeway Development's plans?
Well, certainly not jeopardise. The deal had gone far too far for the council to back out now. Delay? Well, perhaps if the council dragged their heels over the last formalities, so what? We've been waiting for 5 years. A few more weeks wasn't going to make any difference.
So you deny that you had an ulterior motive in wanting the travellers moved on quickly?
I wanted them moved on for the same reason as everybody else. Their anti-social behaviour.
But you at no time took the law into your own hands in any way?
No. On the contrary, I believe in the process of law. Like any decent citizen.
Thank you, Mr. Sibley.
I solemnly swear that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. John Franklin, Constable 1022, Fulchester West Division, Your Honour.
Now, Constable Franklin, were you one of the...
Before you begin, Mr. Parry, I think in view of the extreme heat in here today, we might dispense with these.
Oh. Thank you, Your Honour.
Your Honour?
Now, Constable Franklin, were you one of the police officers who attended Mr. Sibley's house in Maytree Avenue on the morning of Friday the 10th of September 1982?
I was on mobile patrol with Police Constable Baker when we received a radio call from the station directing us to go to 15 Maytree Avenue.
And what time was it when you received that call?
6:05 a.m. precisely.
And you went straight to the address stated?
Yes, we arrived there at 6:06 a.m.
Could you please tell the court what happened when you got there?
I took a statement from Mr. Sibley, who confirmed the theft of a 36-gallon capacity copper cylinder from his garden shed. I also inspected the shed and garden for possible evidence.
And did you find any?
Not much, sir. The shed door was standing open and the long grass at the bottom of the garden was trampled. Other than that, there was nothing.
So what did you do then?
I reported to the station by radio to request the assistance of a fingerprint expert to carry out a routine examination of the shed door, etc.
Your Honour, a statement has been provided by the forensic scientists concerned, and with your permission, that statement will be read to the court on the completion of Constable Franklin's evidence.
Mr. Bass?
No objections, Your Honour. Defence does not dispute the fact of the fingerprint evidence, only its interpretation.
I'm obliged, Your Honour. So, Constable Franklin, having reported back to the police station by radio, what did you do then?
Constable Baker and I drove to the travellers' camp on Folland's Marsh.
For what purpose?
To pursue our inquiries.
In respect of the copper cylinder?
Yes, in view of local circumstances, it seemed a sensible place to start.
I see. And could you tell the court exactly what happened when you arrived at the travellers' camp?
May I refer to my notebook, Your Honour?
When were your notes made?
When I arrived at the station about 20 minutes after the incident.
Your Honour?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honour. We drove onto the Folland's Marsh site at 6:13 a.m. As we approached the travellers' caravans, I saw the accused crouched beside a lorry. He had hold of one end of a copper cylinder which was partly hidden under the lorry. We drove up. I got out of the patrol car and the accused stood up. I asked him if he had a receipt for the cylinder to ascertain if it was his property.
And did he reply?
Yes, he did, sir. He said, "Take it, it's nothing to do with me." I then retrieved the copper cylinder from under the lorry, ascertained that it fitted the description provided by Mr. Sibley, and cautioned the accused.
Constable Franklin, is the copper cylinder, Exhibit 1 here, that which you found in the accused's possession on the morning of the 10th of September, 1982?
It is, sir.
And having cautioned the accused, what did you do then?
Asked him to accompany us to the police station to assist with further inquiries.
Which he did.
Yes, sir.
And subsequently he was charged with the theft of the copper cylinder?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Constable.
Constable Franklin, you've been commendably precise concerning the times of events as they affected you on the day of the alleged crime.
I like to be precise, sir.
I'm pleased to hear it. If we could just look at those times again, though. You say you received a call directing you to Mr. Sibley's house at 6:05 a.m. and arrived there at 6:06 a.m., just 1 minute later. A remarkably swift response, surely.
We were in a patrol car, sir.
Nevertheless, you must have been fairly close at hand when you received the call. Can you remember exactly where you were?
We were at the junction of Maytree Avenue and Beaumont Road, sir.
And was that a fortunate coincidence, or were you normally at that point in your patrol as early in the day?
Patrol patterns are arranged to suit local circumstances, sir.
Local circumstances? And at that time, did local circumstances mean the travellers' encampment on Folland's Marsh?
It's normal practice to keep an eye on such places, sir, yes. Just routine. Most of the travellers have lorries, and experience has shown that they sometimes need reminding of the legal requirements regarding roadworthiness and documentation.
So, in other words, you were there to carry out spot checks on lorries and drivers as they left the Folland's Marsh camp?
Random checks, sir, yes.
You were lying in wait?
Your Honour, I would just like to ask whether my learned friend is suggesting that Constable Franklin was doing anything wrong in lying in wait, as he chooses to put it.
Well, Mr. Bass?
I shan't pursue the... You arrived at Mr. Sibley's house at 6:06 precisely, and yet 7 minutes later, at 6:13, you were entering the travellers' encampment. And swiftness appears to be your trademark. Isn't 7 minutes an unusually short time to spend at the scene of an alleged crime?
Depends entirely on the crime, sir. Mr. Sibley's statement was straightforward, and there seemed no useful purpose in hanging about.
You didn't approach Mr. Sibley's neighbours, Mrs. Archard, for example, to ask if they'd seen or heard anything suspicious?
I thought it a bit early to knock up the neighbours, sir.
But not too early to knock up the travellers?
We did find the cylinder, sir.
I take your point, Constable. You found the cylinder. But before you left Mr. Sibley's house, did you have any evidence to suggest that you would find it in the travellers' camp?
No hard evidence, sir, but in the absence of hard evidence, it seemed a reasonable point to start investigations. Prompt action usually offers the best hope of recovering stolen property.
Prompt indeed. I suggest to you, Constable, that you jumped to the conclusion that the travellers were responsible for the alleged crime and were delighted to do so.
Really, Your Honour?
Mr. Bass, I have already had to warn you of the serious consequences of your line of questioning of an earlier witness. Are you now suggesting that Constable Franklin's actions were prompted by improper motives?
No, Your Honour, but it is necessary to make it clear that he, like others in the police force and regrettably society as a whole, is instinctively predisposed to believe the worst of the traveller community. For because of that predisposition, Constable Franklin behaved exactly as Mr. Sibley hoped he would.
With respect, Your Honour, if my learned friend is suggesting that the witness acted out of prejudice towards the travellers, I would submit he is imputing improper conduct.
I am inclined to agree, Mr. Parry. Mr. Bass, if you are allowed to continue in this vein, I trust you will be able to prove the predisposition you allege.
Of course, Your Honour, and I'm obliged for the opportunity. Constable Franklin, in your evidence, you said, and I quote, "I got out of the patrol car and the accused stood up. I asked him if he had a receipt for the cylinder to ascertain if it was his property." Now, presumably, if the defendant had been able to produce a receipt, you would have accepted that the cylinder was his rightful property.
Yes, sir, I would.
Yeah, but I put it to you, Constable, that most law-abiding citizens would be hard put to it to produce a receipt for every piece of furniture or personal effect they claim to own.
I accept that, sir.
And yet is it not true that you yourself took part in a large-scale police raid on the Folland's Marsh site in the early hours of Friday the 3rd of September, only 7 days before the alleged incident, during which caravans were searched, including that of the defendant, and occupants were required to produce receipts for various items of property?
Yes, sir.
And were you the officer responsible for searching the defendant's own caravan on that occasion?
I was.
And is it not true that no charges against the defendant or any other traveller resulted from that operation?
With great respect, Your Honour, I have shown great patience during this cross-examination, but might I be permitted at this stage to ask my learned friend just where it is leading?
Well, Mr. Bass,
Your Honour,
does the outcome of the police operation to which you refer have any material bearing on the case?
Your Honour, I submit that such raids and the demand to see receipts are a form of harassment, just as repeated spot checks on travellers' vehicles are a form of harassment. I submit that they indicate a predisposition to believe the worst of the travellers.
I see. Constable Franklin, was the police raid prompted by any specific motive?
There had been a marked increase in petty crime in the district since the arrival of the travellers, Your Honour. The response was considered necessary.
Aye, we get the bloody blame for everything.
Silence in court.
But the raid proved fruitless.
It did, Your Honour.
He broke one of my best bloody china vases.
Silence in court.
It would seem that we have one or two other hotheads in court today besides my own. Might I suggest that they go outside for a few moments and cool off?
I'm sorry, Your Honour. It was not you I was getting at.
Nevertheless, if you wish to stay, you must be quiet. Now, did you wish to pursue this avenue any further, Mr. Bass?
No, Your Honour. Thank you.
Then please proceed with your cross-examination.
Your Honour. Constable, now.
And a little closer to events on the day of the alleged crime, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Bass.
Now, when you first saw the defendant crouched by the lorry, was he putting the cylinder under the lorry or pulling it out?
My impression was that he was putting it under the lorry.
I put it to you, Constable, that it's perfectly possible that the defendant, coming out of his caravan, had been surprised to see the copper cylinder under his lorry and was in the process of investigating its presence when you and Constable Baker arrived on the scene.
My impression was that he was putting it under the that he saw us coming and was trying to hide the cylinder before we saw it.
Your impression? You mean you're not certain?
I wouldn't swear to it on oath, sir, no.
Oh, I see. Constable Franklin, after you'd cautioned the defendant and asked him to accompany you to the police station, did you say anything else to him?
No, sir.
Did you say nothing to him when you were all in the patrol car on your way to the police station?
No, sir.
Did you not in fact say, got you this time, Jippo?
No, sir, I did not.
So, Constable Franklin, do you deny saying, got you this time, Jippo?
I do, sir.
Do you ever use the expression, Jippo?
Not when addressing members of the public, sir.
Oh, I see. Thank you, Constable. No further questions.
Do you wish to re-examine Mr. Perry?
Your Honour, yes. Constable Franklin, you visited the Follins Marsh encampment on more than one occasion. Were there a lot of dogs there?
Yes, sir. A dozen at least.
Were they leashed or unleashed?
Mostly unleashed.
What was the reaction of the dogs to a stranger, a policeman, for example, entering the encampment?
They made a lot of noise.
They gave warning of your approach.
They certainly did, sir. You couldn't set foot on the site without studying one off, and then the rest would start barking too.
Not an easy place to enter unnoticed, then?
No, sir.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness. Your Honour, may he be released?
Thank you, Constable Franklin. You may go about your duties.
Your Honour, as mentioned earlier, I should at this stage, with your permission, like to submit the written evidence of Mr. Howard Sadler, the forensic scientist who conducted fingerprint tests in connection with this case.
Does the clerk of the court have this statement?
I believe so, Your Honour.
I have, Your Honour.
Very well. Members of the jury, you are now going to have read to you the evidence of an expert witness. It's being read to you because it's not in dispute, and it would simply be a waste of public money to bring him here in order to read his own statement. Nevertheless, you should treat this evidence as of equal importance as evidence given in person.
Statement of Howard Sadler, BSc, employed by the Home Office as forensic analyst at the Fulchester Laboratory from April 1977 to date. I have examined fingerprint samples found on the 36-gallon capacity copper cylinder. In this comparison of rich characteristics, 11 points of similarity were discovered. In my professional opinion, this incident of similarities indicates beyond doubt that Joseph Michael Kiernan's fingerprints and those found on the copper cylinder and the door handle of the garden shed are the same. Signed, Howard Sadler, 3rd of January, 1983.
Your Honour, that concludes the case for the prosecution.
Thank you, Mr. Parry. Mr. Bass?
I call the defendant Joseph Michael Kiernan.
I swear by Almighty God, the evidence I give should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Come on, Joe.
Before you start, Mr. Bass, if the defendant would like to take off his jacket, he's perfectly welcome to do so.
Ah, thanks, Your Honour. No, but I'm fine. Honest.
The kindness is much appreciated, Your Honour. Your name is Joseph Michael Kiernan.
Yeah, it is, sir.
And you're currently residing at Canal Road, Walsall, Staffordshire.
No, sir. No, we was towed off there on Monday.
I'm sorry?
Towed off, Your Honour. The trailer's evicted.
Oh, I see.
And where are you currently living now, Mr. Kiernan?
Stapleton Street, Bromsgrove, sir. It's a bit of land out there by the railway, you know.
And at the time of the alleged offence in September 1982?
Follins Marsh, Fulchester, sir. Yeah, we pulled on there about the middle of August, like, you know.
Yes. You and your family are, in fact, itinerant, that is to say, travelling people, moving from living in caravans, moving from town to town and site to site around the country.
Yeah, I suppose that's the size of it, sir.
How do you make a living, Mr. Kiernan?
Oh, anything in a small lorry.
Could you be a little more specific, please, Mr. Kiernan?
Well, Your Honour, tarmacking, tree-lopping, car breaking, rubbish clearance, scrap. I can turn me hand to most things, sir.
I envy your versatility. Please continue, Mr. Bass.
Mr. Kiernan, could you cast your mind back to September 1982? That's Wednesday, the 8th of September, in fact. That's 2 days before the alleged crime. Did you knock at the front door of 15 Maytree Avenue?
I did, sir. Sure, I knocked on the mall. I was collecting scrap, you know.
Now, when you were calling from house to house, do you always knock at the front door, do you?
Mostly, but, well, in summer, sometimes I go around to the back, you know.
Why is that?
Well, oftentimes people is in their gardens, you see, so they don't hear you knock. So you go around to the back to make yourself known, you know.
And is that what happened to Mr. Sibley's house? That's number 15?
Yeah, it is, sir. I got no reply at the front, so I skedaddled around the back, you know.
He was simply looking for the occupants?
Yeah, I was, sir.
Thank you. What did you do when you arrived at the back of Mr. Sibley's house?
Well, there was no one in the garden, you see, but the door of the shed was open. So, well, I thought, well, maybe there was someone in the shed, you know. So I walked down to the shed, pushed the door to get past, and looked inside.
In pushing the shed door to, did you take hold of the handle?
I did, sir.
No other part of the door?
Oh, no, sir, no, just the handle.
Mr. Kiernan, did you in fact see a copper cylinder in the shed?
Yeah, I did, Your Honour. Yeah, it was stuck in a corner on top of a pile of old carpets there,
Yes,
you know.
yes, I see.
And what happened while you were looking into the shed, Mr. Kiernan?
Well, that one next door started roaring at... the lady next door started shouting and roaring at me, sir.
The lady who gave evidence earlier, Mrs. Archer?
Yeah, that's right, sir.
What did she say to you?
Well, she told me to clear out, you know.
And you went?
Oh, yeah. I wasn't looking for no trouble.
Did you leave the shed door open?
I did, sir. I left it exactly like I found it, you know.
What did you do then?
Well, I went on down the road to number 1, and then I drove my lorry home.
To Follins Marsh?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mrs. Archer has testified that she saw you in Mr. Sibley's garden again at 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday the 10th of September. That's 2 days later. Do you deny that you were in the garden at that time? Well, can you explain then?
Could the defendant speak up, please?
No, Your Honour. I was in the garden right enough.
Yes, but can you explain why you were in the garden?
You see, I'd gone in after Pops, that old dog of mine. He's the devil's own son when it comes to the rats, you know.
And how did your dog come to be in Mr. Sibley's garden?
Well, we was walking on the path behind the houses, me and the old dog, like. And all of a sudden he takes off through the fence, roaring and yapping and barking, fit to raise the dead. He's a good old dog, so you know. Once he gets the smell of a rat, there's nothing I can do with him, you know.
So what did you do?
Well, I went through the fence after him.
In an attempt to quiet and retrieve him?
We'd had enough trouble with the buffers already. I didn't want Pops waking up the whole neighbourhood, you know.
Pardon my ignorance, Mr. Kiernan, but who or what are the buffers?
Buffers, Your Honour. Gorgies, you know.
Your Honour, I believe the term buffer or gorgie is used by travelling people to denote non-travelling people. Is that correct, Mr. Kiernan?
Yeah, that's right, sir.
I see. Not simply old buffers like me.
Indeed not, Your Honour. Did you know before you scrambled through the hedge whose garden your dog had in fact entered?
Ah, not at all, sir. I mean, it's a good, thick, tall hedge. You got no sight of the other side.
Did you recognise the garden once you were in it?
Sure, I wasn't that interested, sir. All I was interested in was getting old Pops out of there. Yeah, but the grass by the hedge was long, like Mr. Sibley's garden, and the door of the shed was standing open. I noticed that.
Did you go near the shed?
I did not, sir. No. Now, in the end, I just gave Pops a right old kick up the backside, sir, and dragged him out. He only came because he'd lost a rat. Never used to lose him. Getting old like the rest of us, I suppose.
Yes, indeed. Now, once you were back on the public footpath, what did you do then?
Well, I went home to me trailer.
Your caravan?
To me caravan, yeah. Yeah, and I got into bed, and I went to sleep.
What time did you wake up?
Oh, a little after 6.
And then what happened?
Well, I went outside to get a breath of fresh air, and say hello to Pops. Then I strolled over to the lorry, and then I saw the copper tank, like.
The copper cylinder alleged to have been stolen from Mr. Sibley's garden shed.
Yes, sir. It was lying there under me lorry. Honest to God, I was never so surprised since Katie here produced the 2 twins.
And what did you do?
Well, I bent down to pull it out and have a proper look at it, like. Then the boys in blue rolled up. They says to me, "That thing's been stolen from Mr. Sibley's yard." And I says, "Well, take it. It's got nothing to do with me." Anyway, I couldn't have done it on account of me back, sir.
Oh, you suffer from back trouble. Is that not correct, Mr. Kiernan?
That's right, sir. And I just put it out again just that Thursday morning, sir. Sure, I'm always doing it. And there was no way I could have lugged that copper tank back to me trailer, sir.
And how did the police officers react to you when you protested your innocence?
They laughed, sir. They were highly delighted. They'd stopped me lorry twice and found nothing wrong with it. And the trailer was clean as a whistle in the raid a week or 2 before. Yeah. They were well pleased with themselves.
Mr. Kiernan, you heard Police Constable Franklin deny saying, "Got you this time, Jippo," when you were in the police car.
Well, I mean, he would, wouldn't he? I mean, it's only my word against his. He was quite polite, really. They usually called it a hell of a lot worse than that, I can tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Kiernan. If you would just stay there, I'm sure my learned friend has a few questions to put to you.
If it please Your Honour, before proceeding to cross-examine Mr. Kiernan, there's a point of procedure I should like to raise in the absence of the jury.
Very well, Mr. Perry. Members of the jury, there's a matter of law to be discussed with which you need not bother yourselves. Perhaps you'd like to stretch your legs for a few moments.
The case of the Queen and Kiernan will be concluded tomorrow in the Crown Court. The case you're about to see is fictional, but the procedure is legally accurate. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public. Today, the case of the Queen against Kiernan will be concluded, and the jury will be retiring to reach their own unrehearsed verdict.
Now, Mr. Perry.
Your Honour, during the course of this trial, an attack has been made by my learned friend on the motives of a police officer, and further the suggestion has been made to another witness, Mr. Sibley, that the entire case, in fact, rests on an attempt by Mr. Sibley to pervert the course of justice. Your Honour, I submit that it would be hard to imagine a clearer example of an imputation, and therefore I feel I must apply for permission to cross-examine the accused in the matter of his previous convictions.
Yes, I fully accept your reasons for making your application, Mr. Perry. I've given the matter some thought, and I've looked at the accused's record. I find that the latest conviction, which in any case was for a minor traffic violation and not theft, was in 1976. The latest of his 3 convictions for petty theft was in 1972, more than 10 years ago. Prior to that, we have a couple of breaches of the peace. In view of his recent good record, therefore, I've decided in my discretion that it would not be right to allow cross-examination on previous convictions. I'm afraid your application is refused. Mr. Perry?
Mr. Kiernan, you're a family man. Are you not?
Yeah, I am, sir.
How many children do you have?
7 at the last count, sir.
Mr. Kiernan, you've testified that you make a living by doing various jobs involving the use of a small lorry, scrap dealing, for example. Now, do these various, presumably casual jobs provide the sole means of support for you and your family?
Come again, sir?
Do you earn enough money to support your family?
Ah, well, that depends. I mean, in a good week, yeah, more than enough.
And in a bad week?
Well, hardly.
And how do you manage then?
Well, we're on the Social Security, sir, you know.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Well, we're entitled to the family allowance and stuff like that, you know.
And what about sickness benefit? Did you go to a doctor about the bad back that you were unfortunately suffering from in the night of the alleged crime?
I don't have much luck with doctors, sir.
So there is no way of verifying exactly how bad your back actually was? In any event, we've heard that it didn't prevent you from dragging your dog from Mr. Sibley's garden or from bending down beside your lorry either to retrieve the copper cylinder or hide it, as the case may be.
Well, you see, it's the lifting that does it, you know. Not the pulling and bending, like, you know.
Oh, I see. It's one of those kind of backs. Yeah. Mr. Kiernan, do you, in the course of your daily rounds of the streets, ever come across items without an apparent owner, pieces of scrap, for example, lying by the roadside or in a derelict garden?
Yeah, you do from time to time. Not often, though.
Do you ever pick them up, Mr. Kiernan?
Well, I might if they'd clearly been thrown away.
Even though they didn't belong to you?
Well, if they've been clearly thrown away, where's the harm, sir? I mean, dustmen get paid to clear rubbish.
But how do you define rubbish, Mr. Kiernan?
Rubbish, sir, is something that nobody wants.
We're rubbish. Nobody wants us.
Look, will you shut your face, Katie, will you, please?
Violence in court.
I'm sorry, Your Honour. I mean, she's a good enough woman, but she's got too much of this, you know. Oh, yeah, but haven't they all?
That's a leading question, Mr. Kiernan, but I can assure you that if any further interruptions, I shall clear the public gallery. Please continue, Mr. Perry.
Mr. Kiernan, you haven't denied that you were in Mr. Sibley's garden in the early hours of the 10th of September, 1982. You've said that you came into the garden via the hedge to retrieve your dog, which was chasing a rat. Have I got that right?
Yeah, you have.
Could you perhaps tell us how you came to be on the footpath beyond the hedge at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Well, I had to go to the bog, sir.
I'm sorry?
I had to go to the toilet, sir.
I'm not altogether clear as to why that should require you to be on the footpath at the bottom of Mr. Sibley's garden at 2 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Kiernan.
Well, you see, Your Honour, we got no toilets of our own on the site, you see, so wherever we are, we have to use the public toilets. I mean, it's all right if you want to have a pee in the, pardon the expression, sir, in the hedge or behind the lorry, but nothing, well, anything bigger, if you know what I mean, you know. Now, there are some public toilets at the far end of the footpath, be the Bowman's Road Recreation Ground, you know, just about a quarter of a mile from here.
So what you're saying is that you were taken short in the middle of the night?
That's it, Your Honour, yeah. You see, I'd had a couple of pints that evening in the pub, and then one of them China takeaways. They don't mix, Your Honour.
No, I should imagine not.
So, with commendable regard for propriety and hygiene, Mr. Kiernan, you walked a quarter of a mile in the middle of the night simply to relieve yourself?
Yes, sir. Well, we're not as dirty as you gorgies think we are. Anyway, I couldn't sleep, what with the heat and the churning in my stomach. I thought that a bit of a walk might do me good, you know.
Were the public toilets by the recreation ground open at night?
Yeah, they were, sir. I mean, the Jed's was, anyway.
Were they meant to be open?
I don't follow your meaning, sir.
Well, they're not normally locked at dusk. In fact, isn't it true, Mr. Kiernan, that the only reason that these particular toilets were open during the hours of darkness was because they've been repeatedly broken into?
Your Honour, the defendant cannot possibly be
No, it's all
expected
right.
to-
I can see what he's getting at right enough.
Mr.
Look,
Kiernan.
if it was travellers had busted the door, they wouldn't have done it just for the sake of busting it like your Gorgie's vandal. They'd have done it just to get to the tap, to get water.
Mr. Kiernan.
Because the garages and pubs around here are too bloody mean to let them have any.
Mr. Kiernan, I must warn you that you do yourself no good at all by such outbursts.
Well, it's the truth, Your Honour. We get the bloody blame for everything.
And you will kindly moderate your language. Mr. Bass, your objection seems perfectly reasonable. Mr. Parry, the defendant is not here on trial for breaking into public conveniences.
I'm obliged, Your Honour.
Please continue, Mr. Parry.
Mr. Kiernan, when you were living on the Follins Marsh site, did you normally park your lorry beside your caravan?
Yeah, I did.
Where was your caravan in relation to the entrance to the site? For example, was it the first caravan a visitor to the site might come to?
No, there was 4 or 5 before mine.
See? And would a visitor have to pass fairly close to those 4 or 5 caravans before reaching your own?
Yes, sir.
I see. Now, Police Constable Franklin has testified that when he entered the site, dogs from various caravans began to bark. Now, would you agree, Mr. Kiernan, that a stranger, however stealthy, would be unlikely to have got as far as your caravan without alerting at least one of the other dogs, let alone your own?
Yeah, he would, sir, coming from the road end.
From the road end?
From Maytree Avenue, Your Honour.
Is there another way onto the site then?
Well, not for vehicles, Your Honour. Just a hole in the fence, like onto the footpath.
Ah, that would be the public footpath which runs behind the gardens in Maytree Avenue.
Yeah, yes, Your Honour. And it runs part way along the edge of Follins Marsh as well.
And there was a hole in the fence which allowed access from the footpath to the travellers' camp.
Yes, sir. So it was a sort of shortcut to the toilets, like I've said.
I see. And whereabouts was this hole in the fence in relation to your caravan?
Oh, about 10, 15 yards, I suppose. Yeah, my trailer was the closest one to it.
Please continue, Mr. Parry.
This hole in the fence, Mr. Kiernan, you say it was a shortcut to the public toilets.
Yeah, and to the town generally if he was on foot, you know.
Very convenient for slipping in and out.
Oh, yeah.
But would that apply to unwanted visitors as well as to travellers?
How do you mean?
Well, were you troubled by, say, inquisitive children or local hooligans coming onto the site through the hole in the fence?
Every now and again, yeah, but they soon give it up.
And why was that?
Well, our own kids used to show them off.
And your dogs?
Oh, yeah, they get a bit excited, but they never bit no one now.
So the hole in the fence was a convenient entrance for travellers, but not for strangers?
Yeah.
Mr. Kiernan, I put it to you that the truth of the matter is simply this. That on the night of the crime, you slipped out through the hole in the fence, went down the public footpath to Mr. Sibley's garden, where you stole the copper cylinder and then slipped quietly back into your encampment, untroubled by your back.
Look, if I was going to steal something in the middle of the night, I wouldn't take me bloody old dog with me, would I?
Mr. Kiernan, I shall not speak to you again about your language.
I have no further questions, Mr. Kiernan. Thank you, Your Honour.
Silence in court.
Oh, silence yourself, you big dummy!
Madam, I have made generous allowance for the heat, but I will not tolerate any further disruptions of these proceedings. Clear the public gallery.
To bloody send us out. We've come here to see you. We've no rights. This is what we do.
We was only telling at the office.
Mr. Bass, do you wish to re-examine?
Briefly, if it pleases Your Honour. Mr. Kiernan, these occasions when the children, local children, came onto the site through the hole in the fence, was this during the day?
Yes, sir.
Never at night?
Well, once of an evening, maybe, but never after dark, no.
Yes. Were the intruders quiet?
Ah,
Stealthy?
Not at all. Sure, I mean, that was the whole point of it, was to make noise, you know. Shout names at us and so on, cause a bit of bother. It's a game Gorgie kids like to play. You get used to it.
The children on the site react, dogs bark.
Yes, sir, they do.
What about your own dog, Mr. Kiernan?
What, old Pops? Actually, the only thing he's interested in is rats. Lazy old bugger.
And does he sleep outside at night?
In the summer, yeah, under the trailer, like.
Did you say he was a good watchdog, Mr. Kiernan?
Him? Oh, I heard that Jim Bond wouldn't wake him up, sir, and that's the truth.
And when you were on the Follins Marsh site, your caravan was the nearest to the hole in the fence.
Yeah, that's right, sir.
So anybody approaching your caravan or lorry from the hole in the fence would have to cover just 10 to 15 yards of rough ground and wouldn't have to pass a single dog before he reached the soundly sleeping Pops.
That's right, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Kiernan. Your name is Andrew Hopper.
It is.
Where do you live, Mr. Hopper?
28 Stonebank Avenue, Fulchester.
And could you tell the court your occupation, please?
I'm employed by Fulchester Borough Council as a peripatetic teacher and also as traveller liaison officer.
Traveller liaison officer, what exactly does that entail?
Basically trying to help members of the traveller community while they're in the Fulchester area.
I see. Mr. Bass?
Your Honour. Do you know the defendant, Mr. Hopper?
Yes. I first met Mr. Kiernan and his family in 1981 when they spent a few weeks on the old brickyard site north of town, and I got to know him quite well in 1982 when they were on Follins Marsh.
Mr. Hopper, were you the guy from the council's ethnic minority unit who attended the Maytree Avenue residents' meeting on Thursday the 9th of September 1982 to explain the change in council policy towards the travellers?
I'm afraid so, yes.
Mr. Sibley has described that meeting as the nearest thing to a riot he had ever experienced. Would you say that gives a fair description of the event?
Yes, I had a rough ride.
There were suggestions of physical violence against the travellers.
Not just the travellers, me as well.
Did Mr. Sibley argue against such action?
He did, yes.
And in so arguing, what did he say?
He said, there's more than one way to skin a rabbit.
Did he elaborate on that?
Well, not to me, no. He just looked at me and laughed.
He laughed?
Yes, he laughed.
Now, at that time, Mr. Hopper, were you actually living in the travellers' encampment on Follins Marsh?
Yes, I was.
This was a temporary arrangement, was it?
Yes, I'd moved in on the Monday of that week. It's part of my public relations campaign, trying to convince the settled community that travellers aren't just a bunch of unsavoury, dishonest savages. I was doing a series of articles for the Gazette on what it was like living in a traveller's camp.
Were you staying with one of the families, or did you have a caravan of your own?
I borrowed a beat-up old two-berth from a colleague at the town hall.
And whereabouts on the site was it situated?
Next to Joe Kiernan's.
Do you recall Mr. Kiernan having a bad back at about this time?
Yes, he ricked it on the Thursday morning. It's an occupational hazard with people who shift scrap and rubble.
I see. Mr. Hopper, did you sleep in your caravan that Thursday night? That's the 9th of September, 1982.
Not very well, no.
I beg your pardon?
Yes, but I didn't sleep very well. I'd been with Joe. We'd both been a bit over-ambitious with the beer and prawn crackers. I dozed off at about 1, woke up again about 3:30 in the morning.
And what did you do when you woke up at 3:30 on that Friday morning?
I opened the caravan door to get some air. Caravans are like pressure cookers on hot nights.
Did you look out of the caravan door?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw a man's figure heading for the hole in the fence behind the caravans.
Can you describe the person you saw?
Medium height, thick set. That's all I can say. He had his back to me and he was moving fast, crouched as he went, and then he was through the fence and was gone.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. I have no further questions.
Mr. Hopper, if the man you saw was crouched, how do you know he was of medium height?
I could tell he wasn't very tall, that's all I meant.
Isn't it possible that the person you saw was, in fact, a traveller off on his way to the now famous public toilets, and that he was crouched because, like yourself and Mr. Kiernan, he was suffering from the aftermath of the equally famous beer and Chinese takeaway?
Mr. Parry, I appreciate the point that you are making, but I would prefer you to make it in a less facetious manner.
My apologies, Your Honour. Mr. Hopper, are you suggesting that the person you say you saw leaving the Follins Marsh site at 3:30 in the morning was Mr. Sibley?
Well, it may have been.
May have been. Can you identify the person you saw leaving the site as Mr. Sibley, or can you not? Yes or no, Mr. Hopper?
No.
Thank you. Would you describe yourself as the traveller's champion?
Not really, no. I wouldn't be so patronising.
I see. Now, you mentioned earlier that in September of 1982 you were writing some pieces for the local paper about life as a traveller. With your honour's permission, I should like to quote from the Fulchester Gazette, dated September the 16th, 1982.
May I see it? Yeah. Carry on, Mr. Perry.
I am obliged, Your Honour. Mr. Hopper, in one of your articles, you state, in the battle against reaction and prejudice, the struggle of the minority against the often vindictive majority, who would be to blame if those being ground into the mud chose to fight dirty? Aye, Mr. Hopper, I put it to you that if Mr. Sibley's remark about skinning of rabbits is open to interpretation, your own views on travellers are not. I suggest that you are prepared to fight dirty on their behalf, and that your testimony seeking to imply that Mr. Sibley fabricated the alleged crime is an example of such tactics, a misguided attempt to protect a person who, though most certainly entitled to be protected and fairly treated by the law, equally certainly is not above it.
What's the question?
Mr. Hopper?
Mr. Bass, do you wish to re-examine?
Yes, Your Honour. Mr. Hopper, have you ever incited the defendant or other travellers to break or defy the law?
No, I have not. The whole point of my job is to remove points of conflict between travellers and the settled community, not turn them into urban guerrillas.
But what about this newspaper article from which my learned friend has just quoted?
All I was trying to say in that article is that as a result of legislation like the Caravan Sites Act and the Highways Act, the majority of travellers virtually have no legal right to exist. Whenever they stop moving, they are technically breaking the law. The only thing they have to look forward to is eviction, and living under that sort of pressure. The wonder is that so many travellers are so law-abiding so much of the time. Joe Kiernan is a case in point.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. That concludes the case for the defence, Your Honour.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, during this trial, two explanations have been put forward as to how the copper cylinder, Exhibit 1, arrived under the accused's lorry. One explanation is that the accused stole it. The second explanation is that Gordon Sibley, the owner of the cylinder, a well-respected citizen of good character, put it there by stealth in the certain knowledge that its discovery by the police would lead to the defendant being charged with its theft. In support of this second explanation, you have heard the flimsiest of real evidence. On the other hand, in support of the first explanation, that the accused stole the cylinder from Mr. Sibley's garden shed, you have heard the following. The accused, of his own admission, is a man who habitually defies the law by settling on property on which he has no right to settle. He lives from eviction to eviction. Further, of his own admission, he came twice, unbidden, into Mr. Sibley's garden, his second incursion being on the night that the cylinder disappeared from the garden shed. Finally, he was later found in possession of the cylinder with no explanation as to how he came by it. I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that the evidence is overwhelming. There can be no reasonable doubt that the accused stole the cylinder.
Members of the jury, the prosecution has suggested to you that the case against the defendant is overwhelming. It has also dismissed the possibility of Mr. Sibley being implicated in an attempt to pervert the course of justice. But how overwhelming is the prosecution evidence? I would suggest to you that it is purely circumstantial. Nobody claims to have actually seen Mr. Kiernan steal the cylinder. You've heard him giving evidence. He's an intelligent man. If he had set out to steal the copper cylinder, would he have taken a dog with him? Returning to his caravan, would he have waited 4 hours before hiding his ill-gotten gains? The crime hardly fits the image of the crafty survivor seizing his opportunities. As to Mr. Sibley, you have heard that he had the strength, experience and expertise to have infiltrated the travellers' camp. And you've also heard that the police were eager to pounce on an opportunity of the kind presented by the disappearance of the copper cylinder. I suggest to you that when Mr. Sibley said there's more than one way to skin a rabbit, he knew full well what he was talking about, and therefore that there is very real doubt as to how the cylinder came to be under the defendant's lorry.
Members of the jury, the counsel's closing speeches have presented you with two alternatives to choose from in deciding how the copper cylinder came into the defendant's possession. That seems to me a reasonable basis from which to start your deliberations. In certain instances, you will have to choose between two interpretations of the same evidence. Did the defendant's fingerprints come to be on the door of the garden shed because he innocently pushed the door to during his first visit to Mr. Sibley's garden? Or because he less innocently pulled the door open during his second visit? Was he putting the cylinder under the lorry when challenged by the police? Or was he taking it out? When weighing up the evidence, however, you must remember one thing above all else. It is for the prosecution to prove its case. The defense need prove nothing at all. If you think the copper cylinder came to be under the lorry by some means other than dishonest appropriation by the accused, you must acquit him. You will now retire, elect a foreman to be your spokesman, and consider your verdict.
The defendant will stand. Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Please answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict on which you are all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the defendant, Joseph Michael Kiernan, guilty or not guilty of theft?
Not guilty.